Hi there, and welcome back to the Sprinkle Factory. I'm Tony, and today I'm excited to get to share with you how to set up and calibrate your Sprinkle Tray XL. Now, before we get started, you're going to need to download the calibration files. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit pause and then visit the sprinklefactory.com/Sprinkle Tray XL so you can grab those downloads and follow along. Once we have those files ready to go, it's time to head on over to Eddie and check out our extra large sprinkle tray starter kits. Of course, we have our extra large sprinkle tray here, but on top you're going to find we have our extra large silicone mat. Now, as always, our mats have two sides, one being shiny and one being matte. So don't forget that the shiny side always goes down to help stick to the tray and the matte side up to protect your cookies and keep them from moving. And of course, on the back here, we have our magnetic tongue cover with spacer sheet, which has been upgraded for this tray to give it a little extra strength. And this, of course, allows us to magnetically connect with Eddie, but also print in different locations on the tray. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and actually remove this silicone mat because we don't need it for this setup process. So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my magnetic tongue cover because we're going to go ahead and install that now on Eddie. I like to use my finger to hold the liner in place as I get it started here. And then I just give it a little push onto Eddie's original tongue. It's pretty snug as it should be. And then I'm going to use both hands and make sure it's fully seated and even here on the back with the original tongue. And with the tongue cover now installed, we can place our sprinkle tray on Eddie. However, the big question is, where do we place it? So let's dive into that. As I shared before, you can place the XL sprinkle tray in 3 different locations on the tongue cover, which are going to give us these 3 different print zones. This allows us to just get a little more creative with Eddie's original 4.5 by 4.5 print space. To change print locations on the tray, I simply need to release the tray and then slide it to its new location and let it settle in naturally and grab onto the tongue cover. With that said, we've got a whole lot of magnets going on back there, and placing the Sprinkle Tray XL is going to be our biggest learning curve. So something I like to do to make sure I've got it in the right place every time is when I place my tray, I bring it to the edge of the tongue cover so I can still see it and hold it just above. And then I push it back or forward and let it snap into that very last set of magnets. If you run your finger along the bottom of the tray here, you'll find that the tray lip and the tongue cover are lined up perfectly. And same case with the front here. If I run my finger along here, it's a quick way to check that I have everything in the right spot. And now that our sprinkle tray is set up, we can move on to calibrating our Eddie to our sprinkle tray. We're going to do this by printing a series of calibration images and then making adjustments within the Eddie config to our offsets. Our end goal here is for your print to look just like you see it on screen here, with the smaller pink box nice and even across the front line of the sprinkle tray and the smaller horizontal line centered on the tray with no gaps on either side. Although the process is the same, it does look a little different than our original sprinkle tray calibration, but no worries, we're going to walk you through it, so let's get started. And over here on my desktop, I have my calibration files pulled up in preview as well as the Eddie config ready to go. Before I print though, I want to go ahead and go into the Advanced tab here and double check that cookie centering scan is turned off. Otherwise, this process will not work. With that turned off, we can go ahead and print our first step here, which is this image with the pink squares and the plus or minuses on the center of the tray. Because I'm on a Mac, I'm just going to hit File and Print. And then I just need to make sure my settings are okay here. So my paper size is going to be 4.5 by 4.5. I'm going to deselect auto rotate here. And then at the bottom here for my saturation, and print quality, I like to turn it up when I'm calibrating so it's nice and clear. So that's good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and send this to print. Next, we'll head on over to Eddie, where I have placed my sprinkle tray on print zone 1 and hit print. This is a great time to remind you guys that your sprinkle tray should never be on Eddie when he takes a fresh calibration. So if Eddie's been sitting for a while before you started this process or a new print session, I recommend powering him on and off to make sure he's got a fresh calibration before you start. Otherwise, you may find your tray gets knocked off when Eddie brings it all the way back to calibrate. As Eddie finishes up this step 1 print, I can see we've got a little work to do. As I said before, we want this pink line here at the top to be nice and even across the sprinkle tray, and we want the thinner horizontal line to be even from edge to edge without any white gaps on the side, though this one is pretty close. And we'll complete this process by making adjustments in the Eddie config with our offsets using the print on the tray as a guide. So let's head back over to the desktop where we're going to adjust some offsets in the Eddie config here. I'm just going to focus on my vertical to start since my horizontal's pretty close. Now, the thing you need to know about Mac is the increments here are in 0.1 of a millimeter, which means to move 1 millimeter, you actually need to move 10 numbers on the scale. For example, looking at my tray, I want to move approximately 2 millimeters in the positive vertical direction to the back of the tray. So I'm changing it here to 20 to move that 2 millimeters. Once I've hit set, I can then go ahead and repeat the same process with step 2, the yellow version, so I can see the change in calibration to the print on the tray. Same settings here, so nothing different. Let's go ahead and send this to Eddie. And if you're wondering what the little circle is on this calibration print, that is just a helpful little guide so you can confirm that the print has changed. Sometimes we're making such small shifts or it's off the tray so far, it's hard to see if our calibration's actually changed. As you can see here, ours definitely moved in the right direction, but I think we can do a little more. I think I can pull that back in the positive direction and get that even just a little more. In person, it's a little bit easier to see. I think I need my print to move only about maybe a 0.5 millimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and increase my vertical offset by another 5, bringing it to 58. I think that'll do. Again, I'm not focused on my horizontal just yet. So I'm going to hit set, and then I'm going to send my third print, which is this blue file, to Eddie in the same exact process once again. If you feel comfortable adjusting both your horizontal and your vertical at the same time, go ahead and do so. It will speed up the process, but to keep things simpler here, I've done one at a time. Now I can already tell that this looks pretty good. This blueprint is really nice and even with the front of the tray. And I think I can go ahead and make a very small adjustment though to the horizontal. You can see it a little here with the blue on the right side. There's a little bit white left on the tray. So let's go ahead and make that adjustment and print one more time. It looks like I need a little more than 0.5 millimeter of an adjustment in the negative direction on the tray. So I'm going to subtract about 8 units here on this horizontal, which would bring me to -4. Once I've set this, I can go ahead and print my final calibration step here to check that horizontal print. I'm feeling pretty confident about our calibration of this process. If you feel that you still have more adjustments to do, feel free to rinse off and dry your tray at this point and start back over with step 1 so you can get a better feel for the calibration process. Now, in person here, this looks pretty good. Our vertical, as we already knew, is right across the front of the tray, and we've gotten rid of that gap here on the right side with this last print. And I'm going to go ahead and rinse off my sprinkle tray and print the last step once more, just so I can make sure that it's exactly where I want it and it's nice and clear. Once our Eddie print head is calibrated to our sprinkle tray XL, we can start to have some fun with those 3 different print zones. Be sure to check out our different video tutorials for ideas on how you can use your XL tray. Until next time.